All right, I think we're. Yep.
We are
All right.
live.
Hello, Wargamers. I'm Invasive Ramnus, and I'm with Brother Zachareus, otherwise known as Gil, and we're going to talk about the new Codex. We're both really excited about it, but Gil is a little bit more than I am, so um, so he's going to be giving us some good insights on what's going on with this and kind of what we see viable builds being in the future, strengths and weaknesses of the Codex, and just some general information too. So, if you want to hang out with us and talk about that, that's going to be great. So, I guess let's start off first with just some general impressions. Like, what do you think? What do you think of the Codex?
Overall, I think that it's in a much better spot than it was, previously, and that is kind of a given, strictly because the last one was 5th edition and the game has changed dramatically since then. So, I mean, a lot of stuff needed to change, just straight up, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And a lot of stuff did change. There are only 2 troop options available, which is very reminiscent of the Space Marines Codex, where just tactical squads and scout squads are available to you. Space Marines have the Sword Brothers or whatever for the Crusader squad. That's what for the Black Templar, but otherwise they're really restricted in that spot. Everywhere else, they've got a wealth of options, and the Blood Angels are just like that now. And for me, that works out really well because that kind of keys into how I've always envisioned the Blood Angels. They're Codex adjacent, which I think I've said before, and they kind of brought it back into that space. They make reference to them really loving the assault Marine role, but because they are more or less Codex adherent, they keep the same number of assault squads. They say that they just are constantly focused on everybody wants to do it. And to represent that, they've switched the assault Marines from troop choices to fast attack. So that's the biggest change in the book. Otherwise, a lot of things have moved around in the force organization chart, but they're more or less the same in their role. And they're dramatically cheaper, and they've got some awesome new options available to them. So that's all great. The Warlord traits, the tactical objectives, and the psychic powers all also really reinforce the sort of up-in-your-face playstyle that the Blood Angels really, want to stay true to.
But so I guess one thing that kind of strikes me about that though is, and we'll talk more about the specifics with all this in a little bit, but like if you're taking away assault marines as a troops choice, yeah, that makes them literally and also in a fluff sense more like the Codex Marines. But I don't know. I mean, doesn't that? I feel like that takes away a big part of the Codex.
There's no doubt about that, but there are a couple reasons why I feel like that it kind of needed to happen. As far as the fluff goes, they're supposed to have the same number as everybody else, and having them in troop choices made them too readily available. So from the fluff standpoint, I got the boot there.
Yeah, I noticed. That sucks.
It's all right. We're still live, right?
Yeah, we're still live. So
when did I cut out?
You said it needed to happen for 2 reasons.
Okay, yeah.
Right,
so there's 2 reasons. First of all, from the fluff standpoint, they don't have any more than anybody else. They're just always full because everybody wants to do it. So moving them to fast attack makes sense as far as fluff goes. As far as gameplay goes, having Assault Marines available in a Combined Arms detachment as an objective secured unit with the decreased point cost and the increased options, I feel could be potentially too powerful, especially if they remained with the decreased Razorback option or point cost if you took off the jump backs, or had the new weapons available to them that they do now.
Yeah. So is that right? And like I said, we'll talk about this in a minute. But is the Razorback option a dedicated transport, or is it not?
The Razorback can be taken as a dedicated transport on a handful of units, and Assault Marines are not one of them.
Okay. So if they were troops choices and retained objectives secured, that trick would not allow you to have objective secured Razorbacks, right?
Correct. You can
Okay.
still have objective secured rhinos, but honestly, I mean, rhinos are awesome, but they don't have twin link las cannons or las plazas on them, so.
Right. They're as awesome as you can be for being a cardboard box on wheels.
Right.
But yeah. So okay, let's kind of start from the top then. Special rules, which since you have the Codex, you know better. But I'm pretty sure it's just one sentence, right?
Yeah, the Army-wide special rule is combat squads, which has been forever in the Space Marine books. It's if you've got a squad of anything with that rule at full strength, so 10 models or 15 models or however many the maximum models is, you can split them up into 2 half-size squads that operate autonomously. So that's there. That's all we've got.
So like Red Thirst and all that stuff, that's not an army-wide thing at all.
It is and it isn't. The Red Thirst, as we knew it, which was the crappy on a roll of a 1 on a d6 for each squad, you get Furious Charge and Fearless, is gone. Instead, it's been replaced with every infantry model, and all dreadnoughts in the Blood Angels army have Furious Charge, just they have it. They don't have Fearless, so that's awesome, but they do have Furious Charge. If you take the Blood Angels specific detachment that is listed in the Codex in the back, you get the Red Thirst perk in lieu of objective secured, and it gives you +1 initiative on charge. So you get the old Furious Charge from 5th edition if you play with that detachment. And that's how they're representing the Red Thirst now, is that you get the old style, I'm going to hit you first and I'm going to hit you harder than you're hitting back, which is going to be exactly kind of one of the things that Blood Angels players have been missing.
Yeah, I mean, this was it Red Thirst that used to make you charge after the nearest enemy, or was that the Black Rage?
That was the Black Rage. And the Black Rage was also, it was exclusively on the Death Company, and it counted as Rage, which in 5th edition, you had no control over your models. They just went for whatever was closest, and you got, that's all it was. 6th edition gave them the bonus attack, and you could control them, but the Black Rage rule specifically made them count as not a scoring unit. And that rule is completely gone. The Death Company have retained all of their rules, except the Black Rage has been just changed to regular Rage. So they're now scoring.
Cool. All right. And how about the Warlord traits? I know there was a few in there that seemed like they were probably pretty good. Like, what are your feelings on those?
Generally, I really like them. They both reinforce and I suppose encourage the in-your-face Blood Angels playstyle. One of them gives your Warlord Rampage, which is I've personally never been able to use it, and I'm looking forward to that being a possibility. Another one gives you +1 initiative on your Warlord, and nobody's going to complain about that, even though most of the time your Warlord's probably going to be striking first anyway. Another one mastercrafts one of your weapons, as long as it isn't one of the chapter relics. And that fits in with the Blood Angels are artisans sort of thing, kind of like the Salamanders are. Another one gives them Adamantium Will, and nobody ever is going to say, I don't want Adamantium Will, because that's awesome. I'm sure as a Tau player you really wish you had Adamantium Will.
Well, I have Bonding Knives, which, it has dip tiles.
They've got Descent of Angels in the Warlord trait form. The only way to guarantee you can do a Descent of Angels type army is going to be by keeping Dante as your Warlord, because he gets it by default. But with the Assault Marines out of troop, you're going to have to be using guys on the ground no matter what now. You could drop pod them, but that is a completely different beast entirely. And then the last one is a 12-inch Fearless bubble broadcasted from your Warlord to all armies of the Imperium. So Blood Angels, Space Marines, Astra Militarum, any Imperial army that you've got in your group gets Fearless 12 inches away from your Warlord.
That's actually pretty awesome for guard allies.
Yes, it is.
If you had a nice big blob right next to you or something that, because one of their biggest weaknesses is that they can just run right off the board. I mean, I don't know, at least a handful of games that I've played against guard have, resulted in at least something just running away and running off the table because they can't make their leadership save. So.
Yep. Who needs commissars when you've got a Blood Angel leading you to battle, right?
Right. They're, arguably much cooler than commissars too. But
surface anyway.
Yeah. Cool. So, is there a Warlord trait that seems really crappy?
Crappy Warlord trait. The crappiest, I would say, is the Artisan of War, which allows you to mastercraft one of your weapons, or the +1 initiative. The +1 initiative, because the Blood Angels are hopefully going to be striking first. There's a handful of armies that are going to have things that'll be able to prevent that. Tyranids, in particular, coming to mind with the whips, and also the just naturally high initiative on a lot of their stuff. Eldar also come to mind if they're using a Phoenix Lord. But the +1 initiative is pretty good, but Blood Angels and Warlords are more often than not going to be striking first anyway. Especially since the ones that use axes, or in particular Dante, is no longer striking last. And then the Artisan of War is great if you're not using a Relic of Baal, which probably most of the time you're not going to. But just being incapable of mastercrafting an AP2 power sword, or mastercrafting a plasma pistol that doesn't get hot. I mean, realistically, those are going to be hitting on a 2-up or a 3-up anyway, but mastercrafting comes cheap, just kind of in general. So it's not the best. The other ones are all awesome, in my opinion, though.
What about, Oh, I was going to say, what about the psychic powers?
Psychic powers. I really like the psychic powers. They are essentially all psychic powers that were removed during the FAQs back in June, I think, and retooled to work in the current rule set. The Primaris power quickening was taken out in the 5th edition Codex, but it was present in 4th edition and 3rd edition. It's possible that it was also present in 2nd edition, but this is a move that Mephiston had back in 3rd edition when I started playing the Blood Angels, and it gives you extra initiative and attacks. And you can actually target other models with this move now, as well as the model that's casting it. So that's just generally a really handy move. It's kind of a budget warp speed, and being able to get it just automatically is nice instead of hoping to get it. The other psychic powers focus on breaking enemy units with panic tests, giving your models extra attacks, giving your models an invulnerable save for the entire squad, and that's one of the coolest things you could possibly do, especially as a Space Marine. You've already got awesome armor saves. Who doesn't want an invulnerable save on top of that? Models that would really benefit from that, in particular, the Sanguinary Guards. They have the 2-up armor save, but they seem to have an attraction to plasma. So 5-up invulnerable save would be a great thing for them, and the psychic powers allow that once again. The bigger budget psychic powers, Warp Charge 2 ones, are primarily attacks, but Wings of Sanguinius is back. No longer causes your models to move like jump infantry, though. It just moves an entire squad up to 12 inches, allows them to count as moving, but still being able to move a squad 12 inches just kind of for free. Not bad at all. It kind of redefines how you want to use your models, I suppose. people that I think really benefit from using it are Blood Angels players that used Assault Marines as their primary troop choices. They're going to have to switch to tactical squads now, and allowing them to use their librarians to kind of give them the mobility that they are now going to miss from that back is pretty sweet. At least I think it is.
So I guess there's kind of two things I want to talk about with that. So the first with the Wings of Sang getting a spell, I mean there's a big caveat with that, and that is that you can't charge after. So it's probably best when it's probably best on turn one. Yep, I know. So I was just saying that the caveat with that spell is that you can't charge after it. So you can't charge on turn one anyway. So perhaps this is most beneficial on turn one. If you get first turn, it allows you to move up that 12 inches, and seeing as you couldn't charge anyway, you're not missing out on anything. And it also gives you the opportunity to be more effective, since Blood Angels is a mid-range army, at longest, right? So it's mid to close range, probably more close range now with the emphasis on flamers and assault, obviously, but so that this kind of helps mitigate the disadvantage of having to start further away.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of playing more to how I envision the Blood Angels, as kind of a mid-range engagement army. You move a tactical squad 12 inches, or 6 inches, then in the second phase move them another 12, they move a total of 18 inches, they're moving like a fast skimmer at that point.
Yeah.
They get in range, the Blood Angels tactical squad options are the same as the regular Space Marine, with the inclusion of Heavy Flamers, like you mentioned. And Heavy Flamers are awesome against almost everything. So having those that much closer is incredibly helpful. Even disregarding Heavy Flamers, they have grab guns now, and those are only range 18, so that's hugely helpful for grab guns. It's great for plasma rifles because of the rapid fire get in close, so that you can sit at that range in range, but you're not in the rapid fire range for other people. Or what am I saying? I don't even know what I'm saying. But get you guys into range, shoot with them, use the big guns, use the special guns, and be capable of using them effectively sooner, as opposed to having them blown apart before they actually get up there.
So, like, what unit do you think would benefit the most from this spell? Like, it can't be technical squads, because, I mean, that seems kind of like a waste to, use a whole 2 warp charges to move a tactical squad up, unless it's the end of the game and you need to. So that's another option too, right? Is that it's really good for board control. So if it's the end of the game and you're trying to capture objectives, you need this one tactical squad on top of this one objective that's 18 inches away. You can make that happen.
Yep, you can. The biggest caveat to this power, as far as I'm concerned, isn't actually the inability to assault, it's the fact that it must be an infantry squad. When I first read it with the rumors, I was like, okay, we'll move a Land Raider 12 inches during the second phase. That sounds awesome. 3 Land Raider movements in 1 turn. You can't do that. But the models that actually I think this is really awesome for, tactical squads, troop choices for moving them towards objectives, obviously a huge thing. But the squads I'm thinking of are Terminator Assault Squads, Death Company early on, if they're not using bolters, Sanguinary Guard early on, if they're starting in the back instead of deep striking. Pretty much any assault squad that will deliver them to the fight quickly, you're going to want to use this power on them.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing is there's that psychic power that basically makes you take 2 toughness tests, or makes the target take 2 toughness tests, and then for each one they fail, they take a wound. and if the target dies, then you put a large blast template that's strength 4, AP 5 on it. That one's warp charge 2 as well, right? Like 4,
Yep.
5, and 6 are 2 warp charges.
That's correct.
So that 4, 5, and 6 are 2 warp charge ability is kind of crazy, especially considering what type of units you might be taking. You might not have that many warp charges available to you. So a 2 warp charge power is really significant in terms of your warp charge economy.
Yeah, it definitely is. And honestly, Blood Boil is an interesting move to be charges. I think the fact that it's a focused witch power really helps justify it a little bit. I mean, choosing a character and then forcing them to take 2 toughness checks is awesome. The explosion that follows if they die is pretty okay, I guess. But yeah, if you're playing as the Blood Angels, you're probably going to be taking a librarian, 2 maybe. Librarians are substantially cheaper than they were before. They used to be 100 points. Now they're only 65, so it's definitely more affordable to take them now. But you don't have a whole lot of availability in terms of items.
Yeah.
So charges is definitely a big deal. The way I'm looking at it as the 3 1 warp charge or 4 1 warp charge abilities are all much more. This is something that can have some level. The Sanguini is definitely something you want to start with. Invulnerable saves save a lot of you. Well, potentially going to save a lot of your high, budget units. Fear the Darkness forces an enemy to take a morale check with +2 modifier. Against some targets, that's going to be irritating. Against others, it's going to be completely ineffective. So that one is going to really be kind of if I'm playing again this type of book, like Imperial Guard, Astra Militarum, for instance, or against smaller Tyranid things that you've got really annoying, Tyranid Hormigons. If you go out and say they've got a Termagon, back and be just Hormigons everywhere, you could probably break a Hormigon squad with them if they stray too far away. But the other one, Bloodlance, is going to be extremely powerful against people, and Wings of Space is going to control the field to, I think, a degree that is probably not yet appreciated. I think that the ability to move Terminators 18 inches in a turn is huge. So there's that. Personally, I feel like the Blood Boil and the Wings of St. really kind of do need the 2 warp charges, even though that is going to eat up most of your psychic power every turn. And then the Bloodlance maybe probably doesn't need to have the 2. So powerful. I'm willing to accept that it costs 2 warp charges, even if it isn't ideal.
Okay. Sorry, you were breaking up there a little bit. Okay, cool. Let's move on to just a couple of the biggest changes in the actual unit entries. Like, we already talked about Assault Marines a little bit, but I know there's a few units in particular that you feel really strongly about. What do you think were the biggest changes in the Codex in that regard?
Okay, the biggest change, or the 2 biggest changes, at least in my opinion, come in the terms of the Death Company and the Furioso Librarian. The Furioso Librarian was shifted into HQ with no awkward spot. Cool if they made the Venerable Dreadnought with the additional armor that the Furioso has. They didn't really do that. But it is considerably cheaper than it was before. the Furioso Librarian Dreadnought is the only Dreadnought the Blood Angels have that is actually cheaper to field now than it was before. The others are actually more expensive now, and they're really no better, which is disappointing. But that's something else. Having the Librarian Furioso Dreadnought compete directly with the Librarian for organization chart slots makes sense, in terms of limiting the psychic budget you have, but it also says I'm having a difficult time deciding when you want to field a Furioso Librarian as opposed to a regular one. When the regular one costs less than half as much, it can be just as effective in terms of psychic powers. And honestly, unless you're fielding Mephisto, you don't really want to engage the foe with a Librarian. Furioso has that ability, but it's also a much larger target and honestly a lot more vulnerable to enemy fire. So that's one big thing. The other one is that the Death Company were shifted into Elite. And I'm still here, right?
Yep.
You're moving. Yep. All right. So the Death Company were shifted into Elite, which brings them directly in competition with the Sanguinary Guard, which is unfortunate for the Sanguinary Guard because the Death Company are more numerous, realistically more durable, and can be effective in close combat. And what that does is it essentially limits the Sanguinary Guard's use to a very small handful of situations. One that comes to mind is using Commander Dante and having him join the Sanguinary Guard so that they can benefit from hit and run. But with the exception of that sort of situation, the Death Company are generally going to be a much better option, which is cool now that they're scoring units and they haven't really lost any of their oomph. They're substantially cheaper as jump units, but they're no cheaper if you just keep them on foot than they were before. But the big thing is that the Sanguinary Guard are much cheaper, but generally more useful. But the Death Company, I think, are going to outshine them in most situations now. And since they're competing for slots, that's who is typically going to be fielded. The Death Company, I don't think are going to be more prevalent than they were, since if you're playing as Blood Angels, you're going to field them anyway. The big difference is that they're going to crowd out the Sanguinary Guard, which they were in a weird spot. But the Death Company are going to be fielded in greater numbers than they were before, generally speaking, because you're not limited to a single squad anymore. And because they're going to be more effective and cheaper typically than Terminators or Sanguinary Guard are, they're going to be the go-to elite assault teams. They're better than the Vanguard veterans in most situations as well. And they've been shifted from fast attack to elite as well. So they're probably going to be fielded very rarely now. Not that they were very common before, but.
And they can switch their jump packs for a drop pod, right?
They come stock without jump packs. They can take a drop pod if they so choose. The jump packs are 3 points now instead of 15. So that's a huge deal.
And how much does the drop pod cost? I mean, does that even out, or?
The drop pod costs 50 points, and then plus whatever upgrades you take with it, which if I remember correctly, is just the Deathstorm launcher, which is the blast weapon that's 5, no AP that it can take. So if you've got a squad of 15 Death Company, that is going to be roughly, the jump packs are going to be cheaper in most situations, is even at the maximum squad size, which is 15.
Yeah.
So generally the jump packs, especially if you're fielding Dante and or your Warlord gets Descent of Angels, are generally going to be the better option, especially since the Death Company are relentless. So if you have them jump in, then they're just not going to really care about anything. Not that they ever did. That's kind of their thing, is they don't care.
Okay, cool. Well, let's move on to talking about some potential army lists then. And what were you kind of thinking for a good viable list moving forward?
The forced inclusion of either scouts or tactical marines is going to say, all right, you're fielding at least 20 tactical marines. I'm actually thinking I want to include a bit more than that, but the big thing is that with the increased emphasis on your everything being closer, not just your assault squads, but also everything else. The tanks, they all still want to be close. The Vindicators can still be fast if you want them to be. The Bale Predator is still going to be a close-range anti-infantry sort of machine. All of your elite squads all want to be close. The only things that don't are Devastators. And chances are you're not going to be fielding them anyway. So you're going to want to play that to your advantage. Death Company are probably going to be fielded in at least the same numbers they were before. You're going to want to be able to deliver them into combat. So they're taking either a drop pod or jump packs. It's going to be one or the other. You're never going to not take an option to get them deep into the field as quickly as possible. Fragioso Dreadnoughts with the frag cannon. Assault 2 template, Strength 6 rending. It's still as amazing as it was before. You can drop those in on the enemy, take them out. They're still going to be able to punch big things real hard with their Dreadnought close combat weapon, and they're going to shred up the frag cannons, so they're still going to be a great option. The Sanguinary Guard, like I said, would be very useful if you were to field them with Commander Dante so they have hit and run. Otherwise, you're probably going to stay away from them. Fast attack options. The Assault Marines are actually a really attractive choice there. Before, if they had not shifted the Vanguard veterans away from fast attack, there would really not be a whole lot of situations in which you want, because the Vanguard veterans are definitely more expensive, but they're dramatically more effective. The Assault Marines can take 2 multi-guns and furnace pistols if they wanted to. You could load that squad up with Melta and drop them right on top of it and just rip it apart. So those are actually a really attractive choice now. Well, still, I should say, despite their shift. So an army that I am thinking of in my head right now that I would really like to field would be a squad with 2 tactical teams with, at this point, probably grab guns, and even at this point, I think still heavy bolters, just because they're a cheaper option, and I do kind of like that weapon in general. Assault teams with maximum a Death Company squad. We handle 10 Death with a handful of power weapons sprinkled in just for an extra punch. And then 2 Fragiosos with drop pods with probably at this point still Mephiston, despite being hit a little bit with the a shift in stats, but also gaining independent characters, so you can take a squad with them. I think that it's done more just general librarian, just to give yourself access to second powers, and then a Storm Raven, and maybe instead of a Storm Raven, 2 Vindicators with the upgraded engine, so they move fast. But just an army that focuses on getting within 24 inches and winning at that range. And the great thing about the Blood Angels now is that they are pretty much, no matter what you're fielding, going to be capable of getting within that range. More capable than they were before, even. The way things have shifted, I've always felt like an elite, army focuses on things that are not the troops. This army list really emphasizes that, or not this army list, but the book really emphasizes that now. It gives you a ton of options that are, for the most part, attractive, really. And that list, Fragiosos, Vindicators, Death Company all want to be close, and they're able to get close very easily. Fragiosos and Death Company have never had trouble with that. Vindicators haven't either. But the redundancy in the list is really the big thing, is that you're going to get close, and your enemy really cannot stop you from getting into that range, at least not completely. And by the time you get there, you're going to be just absolutely devastating. So that's the intent, is you're going to be able to get in close, and if you get there, and you will, you're going to be, you're going to hold the upper hand at that point.
So what? Something that I've been thinking about is how a list with like a strong assault component. So maybe you have like a big unit of Death Company, and then Mephiston and Sanguinary Priest. Like that unit seems like it'd be pretty effective in close combat. And then just have a bunch of tactical squads with grav guns, and kind of do a setup where you use as many small units of tactical marines as you can with grav guns, and then support it with just some fast tanks and a Storm Raven. That seems like that might actually be pretty solid. I don't know, what would you think of something like that?
It would definitely be effective. It wouldn't have any distinct strengths. The biggest thing is that the grav guns are really effective against armored targets and modestly effective against armor. And fielding them, en masse like that would it would never be ineffective, but it would never be hugely effective, I suppose, is my big gripe with it. Especially since you're moving a lot, you're not really going to be able to take advantage of the salvo as much as you would like to.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could throw in flamers in with the grav weapons, but because I think one of the big weaknesses prior to this for Blood Angels was how to deal with armored lists. So, of course, Imperial Knights, which have 13, 12, 12 armor, a handful of hull points, and a shield that ignores half your shots. So really having something that can lay on the hurt with that is good, and it's something that you would see frequently in kind of the wild. So having a list that has MSU TAC Marines and Rhinos or something with grav and flamers, combined with the support from a Storm Raven, especially if you give it the Melta option, that could actually be pretty effective against Knights. But yeah, you're right that if you're facing a non-armored list, it loses some of its punch. Maybe the flamers can help with some of that, but I don't know.
You're definitely right about that, but I would actually make the rebuttal to your Blood Angels are weak against armor, or not necessarily weak, but one of their weaknesses is against armor. That was actually one of their better strengths. If you field the proper army type, you have immense access to Melta weapons, and you can get them in Melta range with startling ease. And that really hasn't changed at all. You can take Melta weapons on anything with the Blood Angels. Sergeants can take Infernus pistols. Like I said, assault squads, if they come down, Deep Strike right next to something, they can have 2 Melta guns and an Infernus pistol. So that's 3 Melta shots in Melta range on armor.
Yeah, I guess. I kind of forgot about Infernus pistols. Not to mention all the other Melta, but yeah, that's a good point. So something else I was kind of thinking about was that ways to make that Death Company unit more um, more detrimental. And one way you could do that is if you allied in like either generic Space Marines and took White Scars, or if you allied in Space Wolves.
I missed everything about that Death Company thing.
Yeah. So something else I was thinking about was how to make that Death Company unit I was talking about with, you know, 15 Death Company, a Sanguinary Priest, and Mephiston more detrimental. And some of the ways I was thinking about doing that would be, either allying in White Scars and taking some bikes in there, or allying in Space Wolves and taking some like Wolf Lords on Thunderwolf, or something like that. Basically, any of those heavy hitting, fast, close combat units might actually work pretty well in a unit of Death Company. And if they have Mephiston with them, all the more power to them, I guess. But I don't know. What do you think?
You could definitely do that, but the big problem, it's not a problem. That would give you an incredibly assault-heavy list, obviously. But the Death Company are going to be absolutely devastating in their own right. They're every bit as powerful as they were before, and with their decreased costs and jump packs, you can actually afford to give them a lot more power weapons than they used to have. And you don't need to field the Sanguinary Priest with them because they have Feel No Pain anyway. So they basically get the benefit of having a Sanguinary Priest without having a Sanguinary Priest. Mephiston would definitely be a powerful choice to field with the Death Company, but if it were my decision, I would actually field Astorath, which it kind of hurts me to say that. Not any better than he used to be, and he wasn't all that great. Mephiston is now, but he allows the Death Company to roll their hits, further misses, and their failed wound rolls. And he's the only chaplain that lets you do that now. The other ones don't anymore. So that would actually dramatically amplify the effectiveness of the Death Company beyond their already astoundingly high level of effectiveness. So in that situation, I would field Astorath with the Death Company. And if I wanted to bring in some Thunder Wolves or something like that, that's definitely something you could do, but I don't really see it as something that you would need to do. The Death Company by themselves are going to be incredibly scary.
Yeah. So what? I guess what do you see as good allies then, if not an assault-based army?
You could definitely take the Space Wolves. Something like that would amplify our assault strength. But really, I would say that taking something like that. I mean, I really hate to say it, but I would say take the regular Codex Marines, and something I plan on doing, I should say, is fielding Imperial Fists with your Blood Angels, which is cool for fluff reasons, going back to the Horus Heresy, but also because the Imperial Fist chapter tactics give you awesome long-range options to complement your already awesome close-range options. So if you were to take Imperial Fist, you could actually realistically have an incredibly effective Devastator squad, or you could take Devastator Centurions and be like everybody else too. But the way I look at it right now, not having had the opportunity to actually play a game with the new Codex, Death Company, or not Death Company, just Blood Angels in general are going to be as effective as you can get in an assault. They're just going to be. Thunderwolf Cavalry definitely are also extremely effective, but I don't see the need to ally with Space Wolves to field them. Similarly with White Scars, the bike's not necessarily something that you need to do to justify your list, but field something to amplify what your list is going to be with, which is going to be long range. Taking Imperial Fist seems like a very strong option to me. If you wanted to field some guard for some, some of their tanks, I could definitely see that too. Imperial Knights, not ever really a bad choice, so you could definitely do that as well. There's rumors that, I'm sorry, you should do that as well, because they're Imperial Knights.
Yeah.
There's rumors that even potentially the Adeptus Auroritis, the Sisters of Battle, may actually be getting updated in the coming months. If that actually happens, then they would be also a great mid-range thing to amplify your strength, maybe give you different options depending on what they get. See, I think that'd be really cool. But for my opinion right now is that allying with somebody that is going to complement your strengths rather than, amplify your strengths, I suppose, is going to be a better choice with the Black Angels in their current iteration.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a good strategy overall, too. So, okay, cool. Well, we should probably wrap it up. Do you have any final words?
I'm really excited to actually play it.
Yeah.
Having looked at it, there are some things that I don't necessarily like. I think that it's unfortunate that the Furiosa Dreadnoughts are actually more expensive than they were before. I don't really like that they are completely, just, upstaged by murder. But you can still field a lot of them. The allows you to field more elite slots. Extremely. But I feel like they restructured the list in a way that is extremely frustrating at first glance, but very satisfying after you've had some time to really read it over and think about it and internalize it. With Shield of Baal Exterminatus coming out next week, I'm really excited to see what other options that also provides. They're going to have Flesh Terror data sheets in there, so I'm really excited to see what that is. Gabriel Seth, it looks like he's a great budget Lord of War option. Really itching to field one, and you only have 160 points left. Field him, he's going to be, generally speaking, looks like he's going to be really good. I mean, he's not going to win the game for you, but he's going to value in points before he goes down if he does. But I'm really excited to see what's coming this upcoming week, because what I've seen so far didn't look great at first, but having thought about it, I'm actually really digging it. So I'm really quite excited to see what the entire package is going to look like.
Yeah, it should be cool, especially if Exterminatus serves almost as a supplement for the new Codex. So, because that's kind of the way it goes, right? Is that
data sheets for Blood Angels, Flesh Terrors, and of course our Brofist buddies, the Necrons.
Yeah. So I mean, really, the main Codex brings the kind of the skeleton, and the supplements and the data sheets can really put some meat onto it. So it'll be exciting to see how that turns out. Yeah, so I think that's probably good for tonight. For everyone who has stuck with us, see, we already lost Gil. You stayed with us. Thanks for watching. But yeah, you're back. I was just saying, if you stayed with us despite any technical difficulty, we appreciate it, and look forward to more videos from Gil discussing Blood Angels. I'm sure he'll have lots to say and